and painting that an aesthetic experience can open up a space that otherwise doesn't exist.
We're very excited, and it's really an honor for us to have this. From the beginning, the idea was, let's study the possibility of making a show which concept would be different than the large retrospective and more according to our means and capacity. I mean, Gerhard, who's a key lender to the exhibition, and without Richter Studio and their generosity in making this possible, by lending the work, this would not have been possible, because we're not like any of these great museums, and we would not have been able to bring this work in Beirut. This is how it all started, by conversations and by studying the pragmatical possibilities, doing different trips, meeting Gerhard Richter, first in London during his retrospective at the Tate Modern, then in Cologne to work for the making of the exhibition. Norbert came to Beirut and supervised the hanging of the show, and everything went really smoothly.
The curious thing, of course, about the work of Gerhard Richter is that, in a way, he conflated the question of what is painting and what can painting still do with the question of how does post-war Germany come to terms with its own history. It was an essential part of the project. So it seemed interesting to transfer that proposition, to bring Richter's work into Beirut, to see really as an experiment what happens when you see this work in a very different context, in a different location.
It's a funny story. I did this big show, Panorama, and of course they need money. Such a show is very expensive, and I was asked to make an edition, what they can sell, and here's it, Mr. Kittelman came and said, he has a good idea. What make a facsimile of the curtains they have, their own. And I said, yeah, what do you think? I think nobody will buy it. Would be a success. I would like to have one. But it was a total success. He was right.
The curtains were actually made by Richter simply putting shades of grey in such a way that you read them like folding material. So they are painterly inventions. They're not documentary images of any kind.
I'm always fascinated with mirrors. It shows the world, but it's not the world. And there are many parallels.
What we try to do with this particular exhibition is really to explore this notion of the overpainted photographs as the key theme. And so they're interspersed with other work that in some way makes you think what is actually happening really in those images. So we've got various bodies of overpainted photographs, starting with the early images from the late 1980s, right up until the present moment, including the single largest body of work, Museum Visit, which begins with white overpainted photographs of the visit to Tate Modern at the beginning of the sequence, and then slowly changes into photographs that are overpainted with various colors, only to end in a sequence of images which are predominantly red. And the addition of the color adds a different sensibility, a different type of atmosphere to what you see in those photographic images.
A German went in a home for nurses and he killed 8. This was so hard and so shocking. Mr. Speck, I remember the name, but I don't know why and what he was. I think it was crazy.
The building was built in the 50s. It was a furniture factory that was closed for several years before we took the place. It was actually much bigger than it is now, but it was cut because of the highway that is now next to us. And what's interesting also is that we can change the space depending on the exhibitions and the needs and the requirements of the artists. There is no museum dedicated to contemporary art in Lebanon. You have galleries and you have foreign cultural centers, but now you have new spaces are starting to exist. And when we opened in 2009, and I can say that even until now, we are the only space of this kind in Lebanon.